sichos about Simcha having to do with Yutas Kislev, and it's all taken from the Sefer Shari HaMoyadim, and two sichos over here are from Yutas Kislev Tafshin Yutas 1958, and one sich is taken from Tafshin Chav Beis 1961. Okay. So he says, first of all, he talks about the Simcha of Yutas Kislev. When my father-in-law, when the Frierdiker Rebbe related on the 19th of Kislev, 1932, Yutas Kislev, and he spoke about Yutas Kislev, who Siper, he related Keitzad Hayanira Yutas Kislev edition, how the first Yutas Kislev appeared. In other words, as we know, the Frierdiker Rebbe always was very descriptive in writing all the different stories having to do with Chassidim, and of course, such a major story having to do with Yutas Kislev, even though it was already like not directly connected with the actual imprisonment and freedom, but the reactions the Frierdiker Rebbe was very always shared. So he said, Miyad lachar hashichrur, immediately after the release of the Alter Rebbe, the Ir HaMeiser Petersburg, in the city of his imprisonment in Petersburg, Ukefi, Shehi Nikras Hayom Leningrad, the way at the time when the Rebbe said the Sikha was called Leningrad, but as we know, since the fall of the Soviet Union, it became back, reverted to its old name of Petersburg. By the way, from a Yidden, for those that are listening over here, do not, let's see what happened over here, why we do not see the Sikha. Pam param param pam pararada. Yidadadadam pam param paradadam pam param. Dididididididam. Here it is again. So
Thank
before,
you.
I don't know why it disappeared again. It was, I know it was here before. For those that logged on early, I don't know how it disappeared.
Yes, it was. It was there.
So, again, just to note that it's the Yidden do not avoided saying the ST, like people call it Simcha Monica. They don't call it with the Christian terminology of the ST. So they only called it Petersburg instead of the full way how people pronounce it. Anyway, so the city of Petersburg, the city of Petersburg was, like he's going to explain, people were literally rolling in the streets. This was, at that time, it was a very great joy. To such a degree, of great joy. Like the Frierdiker Rebbe concluded then with the expression, he's that they were literally rolling in the streets of Petersburg. Now, the Rebbe is going to explain, we need to understand, it's not rolling in the streets. Chassidim to roll in the streets of Petersburg is not like rolling in the streets of Crown Heights, or even in Miami, or even in Los Angeles. In Petersburg was bechlal a very difficult, just being under the Tsar was a very difficult time for Yidden. And on top of that, the very fact that Yidden were not supposed to live in Petersburg unless they had a special exemption to allow them to live. In general, Yidden were not permitted to live in the city of Petersburg. As we know, there was something called the Pale of Settlement. The Pale of Settlement was the areas in Russia, Ukraine, that the Yidden were allowed to live in, and Petersburg was not part of that, and you need to have a special document to allow you to live over there. So the Rebbe goes on to explain this, what I just now said. Petersburg, at that time, Petersburg was the capital of Russia, not like now that Moscow is the capital. At that time, Petersburg was then the capital of Russia. And at that time, Russia was a world power, major kingdom that was very powerful. Yidden were only permitted at that time to live in specific areas of that country, known as the Pale of Settlement. And the vast majority of the country of Russia, the Fratbe Moscow, especially in Moscow, which was a major city. Peterburg, and how much more so in the capital city in Petersburg, Jews did not have permission to live in that city. So in other words, most of the Jews that were in that city were actually illegal, and they were there underground. There were some people that were there, a few people, rich people, business people, etc., that they had the exemptions. And then there was the underground economy. There were people that were there, they smuggled in, they tried to avoid being, identified by the police and so on, etc., etc. So despite that, that the joy was so great, the part says that it broke through all boundaries and all barriers. Ad kedei kach, to such a degree, by Yehudim she's Peterborough. Those Jews that lived, undocumented Jews, like illegal aliens, undocumented aliens. So there were Jews in Petersburg that were undocumented, and they couldn't show their face in public. And when they did, if there was a police officer around, they scurried away quickly before they're stopped and asked for their papers. So instead of being low key and not bringing attention to themselves, they were rolling around in the streets of the city openly before all in celebration of the Simcha. The Rebbe says an interesting thing in a similar vein that we see a puzzling thing by Yud Beis Gimel Tammuz, that all of the people that were involved in the Soviet Union in putting in effort to get the Frierdiker Rebbe released from imprisonment were not harmed by their involvement. Usually in the Soviet Union under Stalin, anybody that showed any type of connection and protection for someone that was identified as having to be a counter-revolutionary, so automatically the counter-revolutionary suspicion fell on you, and that was enough to arrest you and just be forgotten about and be thrown into the gulag or worse. So in other words, all those people that came to the Frierdiker Rebbe's protection and went to speak to different government officials, etc., within the Soviet Union. Also, not talking about the people outside of the Soviet Union, but people within the Soviet Union, they were not harmed. And the Rebbe speaks about it in a different sikha, how this was miraculous under the Stalinist regime, that people should come to the assistance of a person that's charged with counter-revolutionary activities, and they themselves should not be in any way hurt by that. In a similar vein, the Rebbe says over here that even though it was illegal for any Jew, for most Jews to be found in Petersburg, still in all, they were celebrating so strongly that they literally were rolling around in the streets of the city, and again, we haven't heard of anything happening to them because of that, and so on. So the Rebbe says, when this story is told to us, it's not just for the sake of telling a story. It was related to us, it was told to us, to prove to us how great the power of Simcha is. If the joy is connected with a mitzvah, Harei shehi noisas imo gamas koyach haTorah, so that it carries along with it also the power of the Torah. V'azaya simcha peretzes is kol hagdorim. Then the simcha breaks through all the barriers. Gamas elu shalam amlocha adira hanimtzoim tachs reshusam. Also those barriers of the great government, the powerful kingdom, that they are found under its control. They weren't released all of a sudden from being under the Russian Tsar. They were still under the Russian Tsar, and here he says specifically that they were not hurt by it. Ad kedei kach, to such a degree, shesimcha zu lo hizika la'af echad, that this joy did not hurt even a single person. V'chol elu shechagagu v'samchu b'simcha zu, all of those that celebrated and rejoiced in this joy, la'ira lahem kol ra, nothing bad occurred to them as an outcome of this, similar to what the Rebbe said about those that assisted the Friedrich Rebbe in Yud Beis Tammuz. So the Rebbe says a very interesting thing. Ein mashmos hadover. It's not that the meaning over here is shasimcha bitla es mamlacha, that the joy removed the kingdom. In other words, all of a sudden, the Russian government fell because of the great simcha that Chassidim had about the release of the Alter Rebbe. The kingdom went on, the Tsarist government went on for more than 100 years. The Tsarist line, the Romanovs, etc., went on for over 100 years from when the release of the Alter Rebbe. The release of the Alter Rebbe was in 1798, Tavkuf Nun Tes. And the Tsarist government did not fall until 1917. So that means it was over 100 years that the Russian government went on since then. Even on that very day of Yutes Kislev, of Tavkuf Nun Tes of 1798, both prior to the rejoicing, before they were rolling in the streets, and after they were rejoicing, after they got up and dusted themselves off and went home, they took in consideration the rules of the government and the different types of orders that the government put in place. But during the rejoicing, is Petersburg. They were rolling around in the street of Petersburg, and no one was hurt by it whatsoever. Though this was totally not appropriate according to the laws of the government. The Rebbe says, the lesson from this is, even in a situation where we find ourselves, that according to Torah, one needs to take consideration the laws of the kingdom. Nobody says that according to halacha, the Yidden should have gone over there and flouted their presence and flaunted their presence in the face of government officials, in the face of the police, and so on. So even then, Torah mandated them to keep undercovers. The matters are, this is all spoken, this is all talking about ein inyan boy al pi Torah yesh lahaser as amidus v'agbolos. If there's no reason that according to Torah we need to remove those boundaries and limitations. Ulam, but when one reaches out a state of a joy connected with a mitzvah, okay, but Rambam, like to explain the Rambam, that such a type of simcha can be in every mitzvah, that we can have a simcha of a mitzvah. How come? Why would we have a simcha by performing any mitzvah? When one thinks into the fact that the mitzvah is fulfilling the will of the King of Kings, the Eibishter. And the Eibishter directed the person to fulfill his will. And Hashem told the Jewish people, at the time when they fulfilled the mitzvah, so then they are causing for Hashem a pleasantness. As the Chazal say. The pleasantness that Hashem derives from a Yid fulfilling a mitzvah is from the fact that I commanded, I said, and I stated that my will was fulfilled. That makes by Hashem a nachas ruach. Thinking into the fact that when I, little me down here, am doing something, and I'm making the Eibishter nachas ruach, that should bring a person to joy, and that should bring a person to a very powerful joy. So therefore, this joy is connected with Torah. And it removes all types of boundaries and limitations, and therefore it's able to happen even in a situation where otherwise it might have been dangerous for the Yidden, and instead it is something that is that doesn't hurt and doesn't damage it. Kol inyan tzarich lahavi lahisafa lachala pachas chizuk b'milui hatafkid lemane nivra ad. Every matter needs to bring an addition, or if it's not actually an addition, at least a completion or a strengthening in fulfilling the job that for which a person was created. I was created to serve my maker. The benefit of the joy that breaks through all the above mentioned boundaries. When we have this type of joy, what is the accomplishment of the joy? What's the benefit of the joy? Is it removes all types of boundaries and limitations that could limit a person's fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. Therefore, the Rebbe says, when any event or any concept reaches that period in the year where it originally occurred, in other words, that date on the calendar when that particular event occurred originally, the matter repeats itself again the way it was the first time around. For example, when the 15th of Nisan occurs, it's repeated again, all those things that were there during the time of the Yidden going on in Mitzrayim, during the first redemption. So too concerning the redemption of Yutas Kislev. Every single year repeats again the victory, along with all the hamshachas and the hashpahs that were connected with it. So everything that took place on the first Yutas Kislev returns again now. Mela, therefore, yesh makim lazeh. There is room for the fact, also the joy that took place at that time. That first year and that first time, the great joy that took place when the Alter Rebbe was actually released in the year 1798, Tachzer al Atzma should repeat itself again. Because what took place then is the very thing that is happening now. Like it's understood and explained in Igeres HaKodesh, the matter did not become weakened from year to year. Rather, like all matters of holiness, we're going up in holiness. And surely that we don't, heaven forbid, go down. So therefore, since every year we increase, and in Geras HaKodesh explains every Rosh Hashanah comes down a new hamshacha that didn't come down on a previous year. The same thing. When it comes any Yom Tov every year, we're increasing in holiness, and there's even more reason to be joyous than in the year previous. Okay, and therefore, b'chol shana v'shana, in every single year, Mei Yom Tovim v'Hamoedim, and the days of, and during the times and the calendar dates of different Yom Tovim, u'b'amed askina nachta, and what we're talking about now is Yutas Kislev, yeshna simcha gedola. There's first of all a great joy. This great joy has the capability to nullify all the physical boundaries, just like the joy then, that the physical boundaries of the illegality of the Yidden being over there in Russia, in Petersburg at that time, that they weren't in danger because of their joy. The same thing, the joy now has the capability to break through all boundaries. And therefore, we're able to receive from the joy that is there every Yutas Kislev, every year, an addition and a strengthening in Torah and mitzvahs, that our Torah mitzvahs become added to and strengthened. And the beginning for this is from the day that's called Rosh Hashanah, the day that's the head for all the days of the year that follows it. Just like the head gives life to all the limbs of the body and all the organs, so too, from Yutas Kislev, vitality and joy is drawn down for the entire year. That throughout the year, that's going to come for us in peace. Limud Torah, v'kiyum mitzvahs, the study of Torah and fulfilling the mitzvahs. You ba'ofen shalamaylam b'didav agbola will be in a way of beyond measure and boundary. Ba'ofen shal moisiv v'holach v'oyer, in a way of increasing and adding and illuminating. That's one sikh. I promised you 3 sikhs. Now I see that only downloaded 2 of them. Here is the second sikh. Says its special quality of participating in the joy of Yutas Kislev. Admur Azakin Amar, the Alter Rebbe says, whoever takes part in his joy and happiness, min, this is actually only half a sikh over here. He will extract them from a place of narrow confines to broadness. And there's a second version of what the Alter Rebbe said. That Alter Rebbe said he will take him out, he will extract him, someone that participates in the Simcha, he will take him out min hageshem el haruach, from the physical to the spiritual. Or another expression is that the Alter Rebbe said he will take him out from the min hagehenim, from Gehenim he will take him out. So Kveikus Meirchami Admor Amar B'Shem Aviv Kveikus Admor Mar Shabnish Maseidin. My father-in-law said over in the name of his father, the Rebbe Rashab, Sheshloishes Hanuskois Halalu Achin Masimos. All 3 versions make sense. Each one has an appropriate message. Buhubir Zoisni explained it as follows. From the narrow confines to broadness, it means going up from the world of Bria to the world of Atzilus. Concerning the world of Atzilus, it says, no bad shall dwell over there. It's beyond the chain order of descent. On the other hand, the world of Bria, it's already the beginning of the chain order of the descent of the world. That's what it means, going from the confines to the broadness by going up from the world of Bria to the world of Yitzira. going from the physical to the spiritual. The intention is from the world of Yetzirah to the world of Bria. Since the world of creation is the possibility of existence, it's not actual existence. That's why it's called spirit. As opposed to the world of Yetzirah, it's actual an existence. That's called physical. When it says from the Gehenim, the intention is to this world. Olam Asiya, the world of action. Gehenim, the meaning of Gehenim, listen to this. The Rebbe says the words Gehenim is really as if saying, Ani Hayoy, I am today. We are happy and rejoicing with today without thinking what is the goal and what is his purpose in this world. Someone that takes part in the rejoicing of the Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe will take him out from Gehenim. He'll take him out from the physical to the spiritual, and from the confines to the broadness. So the Rebbe explained further in the place. We don't have the copies. I'll tell you outside what the Rebbe explains. The Rebbe says, first of all, this is appropriate that even someone that is that finds himself at such a low level that he is involved in this physical world and he's just focused on today and he doesn't think about tomorrow, he can reach the world all the way up to the world of Atzilus through rejoicing with the Simcha of Yudas Kislev. And that is because his inner part of his soul, the inner Torah that's connected with Yudas Kislev, raises him up with the inner part of the Ein Sof. And so too, it's the other way around. In what's being drawn down from above to below, we can draw down the ultimate broadness and infinitude that's to be found, the Ein Sof that's to be found manifested in the world of Atzilus, also in this world by participating in the joy of Yudas Kislev. Like it's explained in Chutei Torah, that the world of Atzilus is not found in a particular place in the seventh heaven, but rather the world of Atzilus is down here below, everywhere in this world. And the Alter Rebbe brings a proof. Moshe Rabbeinu was called a neshama of Atzilus, even though he was in this world. So on the very time that he stood in the most unholy place, he was in Pari's presence, he was still connected to Atzilus. And that is the goal, and that's the purpose. The purpose is that the essential broadness, the merchav ha'atzmi of Atzilus, should come down into this world and into physical matter. And like the Baal Shem Tov said on the pasuk, Aziv Taziv Imoy, that the ultimate purpose is that all the highest things should descend into this physical world. And even though a person might think about the fact that I, in my place, the way I am holding, looking at myself, examining where I'm at. So I'm going to say, you know what? I know how low I am. I'm in a state of Gehenna, like you said before. And seemingly to be able to leave the level of Gehenna. This is going to take a very, very long time, many, many years, until we'll go from level to level, until he reaches this merchav, this broadness of Atzilus. That's only if we only look at it from the perspective from the bottom. But if you look at it from Atzilus's perspective, from the merchav and broadness of Atzilus, so over there one finds themselves higher than time and beyond time, and we're not limited in time, and therefore all the limitations of time fall away. And because of the great broadness and expansiveness of Atzilus, we can reach the deepest and highest, from the deepest and lowest levels to the ultimate broadness of Hashem in 1 hour and 1 moment. And what is the tools to be able to reach that? Participating in the Simcha of the Alter Rebbe, like the Tzemach Tzedek explained. How does one do so? Through holding on to the doorknob. Man soll sich anhalten in sein Klamke. And what does that mean, to hold on to the doorknob? So the Rebbe explains the intention is to make oneself and to appoint for oneself times set aside for the study of Chassidus, and going and following its customs and its directives. Then the Alter Rebbe promises him that in 1 hour and in 1 moment, he will bring him up to the ultimate highest levels. Here.